Tell me if this is a crazy thought. Clearly, it was a Jimmy Haslam decision. I think part of the motivation was this helps drown out some of the negative coverage over the Deshaun Watson debacle. Because, as you pointed out, this is all we're seeing.
That's all you see.
Have you seen any Dylan Gabriel completions?
Have you seen any of his throws? Have you seen any of his throws?
I don't even. Dylan Gabriel could have changed and gone right-handed in camp. I would have known.
Is Kenny Pickett, is he still on the team? Where's he at? Ain't seen S from Kenny Pickett.
And also, you don't hear a damn thing about Deshaun Watson, do you, other than his bachelor party?
LaVar Arrington just dropped a bombshell that has the entire NFL world buzzing. The former All-Pro linebacker says if he owned the Cleveland Browns, he'd name Shedeur Sanders the starter today. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. And his reasoning? It's not just about football talent. It's about survival. According to Arrington, the Browns are walking into a media trap that could destroy their entire season, and Jimmy Haslam better wake up before it's too late. But here's the kicker. Arrington believes this whole situation might have nothing to do with Shedeur's actual ability to play quarterback. Look, we've all been watching this Shedeur Sanders circus unfold in Cleveland, but LaVar Arrington just connected dots that nobody else was willing to say out loud. And when you hear what he's really thinking about this whole situation, it's going to change how you view everything that's happening in Cleveland right now. So here's what LaVar dropped on us. And I'm telling you, this man pulled no punches. He's looking at Cleveland and seeing something that should terrify every Browns fan. He says the stage is being set for Cleveland to be trapped. And maybe that's why you saw those looks on people's faces when they drafted Shedeur, because for good or for bad, they're trapped now. But here's where it gets really spicy. LaVar thinks he knows exactly why Jimmy Haslam made this move, and it has absolutely nothing to do with finding their franchise quarterback. Are you ready for this? He believes this was all about drowning out the negative coverage over the Deshaun Watson debacle. Think about it. When's the last time you heard anyone talking about Watson's situation? Exactly. All we're seeing now is Shedeur Sanders highlights, Shedeur Sanders interviews, Shedeur Sanders everything. And LaVar's not wrong about the media coverage being absolutely insane. He pointed out something that should make every NFL fan stop and think. Have you seen any Dylan Gabriel highlights? Have you seen any of his throws? LaVar says Dylan Gabriel could have switched to throwing right-handed in camp and nobody would have noticed. Kenny Pickett? Where's he at? You don't hear a damn thing about Kenny Pickett. And most importantly, you don't hear anything about Deshaun Watson except his bachelor party. This is where LaVar's basketball IQ, football IQ, really shows. He's seeing the game within the game, and it's not pretty for Cleveland. But wait, there's more. Remember that moment with Joe Flacco and Shedeur, where Shedeur was trying to get Flacco to do some dance? LaVar caught that too, and he read it completely different than everyone else. While most people saw it as fun rookie hazing, LaVar saw Joe Flacco basically saying, "I'm not here to be your mentor, I'm here to start." That's a veteran quarterback drawing a line in the sand, and it tells you everything about the tension that's already building in that locker room. Now here's where LaVar gets really bold with his prediction, and this is why I think he's absolutely right. He says if Shedeur Sanders isn't at worst the backup quarterback on this team, there's going to be hell to pay through the media. And he's not talking about some gentle criticism. He's talking about a full-scale media assault that could destroy.
That's the conclusion I've been coming to lately. It's his fame and it's his influence. You do not want, when you heard Stephen A. call that man comparable to Colin Kaepernick, you have now made this a racial, cultural comparison in terms of why this man isn't being respected as a talent. You've taken it out of the realm of being a player and being a pro, and you've placed it in the social and cultural expectations of a cultural and social and racially driven and activated America right now. It's dangerous. That's dangerous.
This franchise's credibility. LaVar went even further and made a statement that's going to have people arguing for weeks. He said if he was the head coach, GM, and owner of the Browns, he would name Shedeur Sanders the starter today. Not gradually work him in, not let him compete, name him the starter right now. And his message to the other quarterbacks? Joe Flacco, love you to death. You gave us a good run, but kick rocks. Kenny Pickett, you haven't shown us you're that good. Kick rocks. Dylan Gabriel, we feel good about what you could be, but we don't see you as a starter. That's ice cold, but LaVar's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. He sees what's coming, and he's trying to warn Cleveland before it's too late. But here's the part that's going to make your head spin. LaVar dropped this question that nobody wants to answer. Did Shedeur drop in the draft because of his talent, or did he drop because of his fame? And he's leaning toward fame being the problem. Think about that for a second. We might be witnessing a player getting penalized not for lack of ability, but for having too much influence and attention. LaVar brought up something that made this whole thing even more complicated. When Stephen A. Smith compared Shedeur to Colin Kaepernick, everything changed. Suddenly, this wasn't just about football anymore. It became about race, culture, and social expectations. LaVar said you've now taken this out of the realm of being a player and a pro, and you've placed it in this dangerous territory of cultural and social expectations in America right now. And here's what makes this so unfair to Shedeur, LaVar pointed out that it's not like he's been arrested or suspended. The kid's been vocal and confident, sure, and the Colorado program felt like a rock concert every time you went there. But they literally had concerts, so of course it was a spectacle. But that spectacle was surrounding a team that significantly improved from where they were before Shedeur and Coach Prime got there. The problem is, nobody knows how to separate the evaluation of Shedeur the player from Shedeur the brand. And that's not fair to the kid, but it's the reality he's dealing with. Are you starting to see why LaVar thinks Cleveland is walking into a disaster? Because the pressure isn't just on Shedeur, it's on everyone. Think about the pressure there, putting on whoever starts ahead of him. Think about the pressure on the backup. LaVar brought up how he talked to Albert Breer about this, and even Breer acknowledged that Kevin Stefanski is in an impossible situation. The coach has been given 2 quarterback situations from his owner that are both lose-lose. One is Deshaun Watson, who's impossible to succeed with because he's not even playing anymore. The other is this Shedeur situation where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you start Joe Flacco instead of giving the young guy a shot, people are going to question why you're not developing your future. But if you throw Shedeur in too early and he struggles, you're going to get destroyed for ruining a promising young quarterback.
To be the guy for the Cleveland Browns, and if he's not, it is going to be every single reason he was let down. There will not be one person that says Shedeur Sanders isn't the starter or the backup because somebody actually was better than him. Now, whether it's true or not, I think the travesty here, honestly, here is the true travesty of this situation.
Now here's where LaVar's analysis gets really scary. And this is the part that should have Jimmy Haslam sweating bullets. The media coverage of Shedeur Sanders is absolutely unprecedented for a 5th-round draft pick. LaVar broke this down in a way that should terrify every Browns executive. We're seeing more highlights of Shedeur Sanders on ESPN, NFL Network, Fox Sports, FS1. More highlights than most starting quarterbacks get. And here's the kicker. These aren't game highlights. These aren't even full pad practice highlights. We're watching a 5th-round draft pick completing passes in OTAs, and they're turning it into NFL Films material. LaVar pointed out that they literally created highlight reels of that catch where the receiver dove into the end zone during practice. They're making practice look like the Super Bowl, and we haven't even gotten to training camp yet. Can you imagine what the coverage is going to look like when they actually get to training camp? They're going to need a dedicated Shedeur Sanders camp. And here's what makes this so wild. LaVar asked the perfect question. How many completions have you seen Cam Ward throw? He's the #1 pick, and we haven't seen one highlight from his OTAs. Drake May? Nothing. But Shedeur Sanders, the 5th-round pick, is getting treated like he's already the face of the franchise. LaVar's warning to everyone listening was simple but powerful. You need to stop and take inventory of what's happening here. Shedeur Sanders is being positioned to be the guy for the Cleveland Browns. And if he's not, it's going to be every single reason that he was let down. There won't be one person saying Shedeur isn't the starter because somebody was actually better than him. And that's the trap LaVar sees coming. The same pressure that's going to be applied to Cleveland and whoever starts ahead of Shedeur. Multiply that by however many times you want for what it's going to look like for Shedeur himself. Because just as much as they'll build you up in these moments, they'll tear you down just as fast. Here's the part that honestly broke my heart when LaVar said it. He knows Shedeur is a hell of a football player. The kid's been clutch since 8th grade. LaVar knows because Shedeur played in his game. But the problem is that same pressure being applied to the Browns is going to multiply for Shedeur when he gets his opportunity. That LaVar made this point that really stuck with me. It's almost better for Shedeur not to get an opportunity immediately, because he'll get more fanfare for being victimized than he will for being the starter. That's messed up, but it's probably true. The narrative is already being written, and it's not about fair competition. The environment being created isn't giving Shedeur a fair opportunity one way or the other. It's too far down the road now. Even if he's named the number 2 behind Joe Flacco, all the questions are going to be about when he's getting his chance. The Browns could be sitting at 4-8, and people will still be saying they'd be better with Shedeur. Hell, LaVar thinks they could be undefeated, and people would still say they'd be better with Shedeur starting. Think about how impossible that makes things for everyone involved. The moment they lose a game, what's everyone going to say? If Shedeur was in there, they wouldn't have lost that game. Meanwhile, Jimmy Haslam is sitting there thinking he doesn't have to hear about Deshaun anymore. But now he's brought in another controversy, and LaVar made sure to point out, this is not Shedeur Sanders' fault. This has absolutely nothing to do with blaming the kid. This has everything to do with how media works, how politics work, how influence works in today's world. A 5th-round draft pick is so influential because of how strong and clearly defined his brand is that it's created this type of coverage. But here's LaVar's final warning, and this is why I think every Browns fan needs to pay attention. That coverage will ultimately be the undoing of the Cleveland Browns this year if they're not careful. So what do you think? Is LaVar Arrington right that Cleveland should just name Shedeur the starter today and avoid the media circus? Or are they setting themselves up for an even bigger disaster by rushing him into action? And here's the question that's going to keep me up at night. Are we witnessing a talented young quarterback getting destroyed by the very media attention that was supposed to help him? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want more insider takes like this that nobody else is talking about, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because trust me, this Shedeur Sanders situation in Cleveland is just getting started, and it's going to get a lot more interesting before it's over. Don't forget to smash that like button if LaVar's take opened your eyes to what's really happening in Cleveland.